Jason Rudd and Dr. Elaine Mercer seemed like two ordinary people, one a quiet computer technician, the other a trusted small-town doctor, but their routine appointment ended in a sudden stabbing, a frantic escape at 133 miles per hour, and a mystery that left an entire community shaken. Dr. Elaine Mercer had spent more than a decade building a reputation as the kind of doctor everyone wanted. Her clinic sat on a quiet street lined with maple trees, a place where neighbors greeted each other, and the biggest excitement on most days was the sound of a delivery truck rattling down the road. Patients described her as calm, thoughtful, and unshakably patient. She never rushed appointments, never made anyone feel like a burden. In the small town where gossip moved faster than traffic, her kindness was common knowledge. Among those who relied on her steady care was Jason Rudd, a man who appeared to blend perfectly into the background of ordinary life. Jason was 32, tall but slightly stooped from years spent at a computer desk. He worked as a technician for a small IT company, fixing servers and troubleshooting software glitches for local businesses. Colleagues said he was polite and dependable, the kind of worker who showed up early and stayed late without complaint. To most people, he seemed unremarkable, the sort of quiet neighbor you might nod to at the grocery store without remembering later. But inside, Jason carried a mind that rarely rested. From his early 20s, he had grown increasingly preoccupied with his health. A minor headache sent him to online medical forums. A stomach ache became a possible symptom of something rare and fatal. He scheduled checkups more often than most people and kept a private log of every test result. Despite countless reassurances, Jason remained convinced that something was terribly wrong. Each normal result only deepened his anxiety. He began to believe that doctors were missing something, or worse, that they were hiding the truth. Dr. Mercer, patient and thorough, tried to ease his fears with careful explanations and extra testing when appropriate. She never dismissed him, even when his concerns seemed far-fetched. Her professionalism only fed Jason's belief that she knew more than she said. If she was so calm, he reasoned, it must be because she was keeping a dangerous secret under control. Outside the clinic, Jason's life looked steady enough. He paid his rent on time, kept his small apartment tidy, and rarely socialized beyond a weekly grocery run. Neighbors sometimes heard him pacing late at night, but no one thought much of it. The quiet town offered little reason for alarm. Yet inside Jason's thoughts, tension tightened like a coiled spring. Each new appointment with Dr. Mercer felt like a test of patience, a chance to catch her in a lie or to finally hear the diagnosis he believed she was hiding. He studied her facial expressions during every visit, searching for flickers of hesitation. Even a casual glance at her computer screen could trigger hours of obsessive analysis once he returned home. By early autumn, Jason's anxiety had hardened into certainty. He convinced himself that Dr. Mercer possessed a critical piece of information about his health, something that explained every ache and twitch. Instead of easing his fears, her gentle manner now felt like proof of betrayal. What had begun years earlier as simple worrying had grown into an unshakable belief that the truth was being kept from him, and with each passing day, the quiet mask he wore for the world grew thinner. The day of the appointment arrived under a heavy gray sky that threatened rain from morning until dusk. Jason drove to the clinic with the same careful precision he applied to everything in his life, his hands tight on the steering wheel and his eyes scanning the road as if danger might leap from the quiet sidewalks. He had barely slept the night before, convinced that this visit would finally expose what Dr. Mercer had been hiding. Each turn of the tires seemed to echo his restless thoughts. By the time he pulled into the clinic's small parking lot, the first drops of rain were already streaking the windshield, distorting the world outside into shifting, uncertain shapes. Inside, the waiting room was calm and almost too bright. The faint buzz of fluorescent lights hummed above a row of neatly arranged chairs. A faint scent of antiseptic mixed with the earthy smell of wet coats. Jason signed in with his usual polite nod to the receptionist, his face carefully neutral. To anyone watching, he appeared like any other patient waiting for a routine checkup. He sat down and began scrolling on his phone, though his eyes barely registered the words on the screen. Behind the steady tapping of his finger, his mind raced. Every sound a door closing, a printer clicking felt magnified. He studied the clinic staff with a silent intensity, searching for hidden signals in their movements. When the nurse finally called his name, Jason rose quickly, slipping the phone into his pocket with a practiced motion. The hallway smelled faintly of rubbing alcohol and freshly polished floors. He followed the nurse into the examination room, a space that was to clean, to organized, with its gleaming instruments and crisp paper sheets stretched across the exam table. The nurse checked his vitals, her small talk brushing past him like static. Jason nodded automatically, every muscle in his body coiled tight. When she left, the room fell silent except for the rhythmic ticking of a wall clock that seemed louder than it should have been. Dr. Mercer entered a few minutes later, her expression warm and professional as always. She began reviewing his chart, unaware of the storm building across from her. Jason watched every movement of her hands, convinced that each pause or glance carried a hidden meaning. As she spoke, he felt his chest tighten with a strange mixture of fear and resolve. In his mind, every word became evidence of deception. He believed she was still concealing something critical, something deadly, and that this visit was his final chance to force the truth into the open. What happened next unfolded in a blur. A sudden flash of metal, a sharp motion so quick it barely registered before it was too late. Dr. Mercer staggered back, a crimson bloom spreading across the white fabric of her coat. The sterile air filled with the metallic scent of blood and the crash of a stool toppling to the floor. Jason turned and fled, his footsteps pounding down the hallway as startled staff shouted for help. Within seconds, he burst through the side exit into the rain, vanishing into the growing darkness before anyone could stop him. Rain slicked the asphalt as Jason's black sports sedan shot out of the clinic parking lot and onto the main road, tires hissing against the wet pavement. His hands gripped the steering wheel with a force that whitened his knuckles. In the rearview mirror, the clinic's lights shrank into a blur of red and white, swallowed by the storm. Adrenaline sharpened every sound, the engine's roar, the rhythmic swish of the wipers, the hollow thud of his own heartbeat. He pressed harder on the accelerator, the speedometer needle rising steadily as if propelled by the chaos inside his mind. Behind him, sirens wailed into life, distant at first, then growing louder with each passing second. Dispatchers had broadcast the emergency within minutes of the stabbing, and patrol units converged on nearby intersections. A highway officer spotted the black sedan just as it merged onto the interstate, the rain-slicked road glistening like black glass. Jason's brake lights never flickered. Instead, the car surged forward, slicing through sheets of rain with reckless precision. The officer gave chase, lights flashing, radio crackling with updates. More units joined the pursuit, their sirens weaving together into a single urgent scream that carried through the storm. Dash camera footage later revealed the terrifying pace of the chase. Jason's speed climbed past 90, then 100, then 120 miles per hour. At one point, the needle spiked to 133 as the car hurtled down a long stretch of open highway. Water sprayed in plumes behind his tires, blurring the vision of officers following close behind. Tractor-trailers swerved to the shoulder, their drivers startled by the sudden thunder of engines. Passenger cars scattered like startled birds, pulling off onto emergency lanes to avoid the streak of black metal that tore past them. Despite the dangerous speed, Jason maneuvered with unnerving control. He threaded between vehicles with inches to spare, his headlights flashing across rain-streaked mirrors. Every curve in the road became a test of nerve, every puddle a trap waiting to send the car spinning. Helicopters joined the pursuit, their spotlights sweeping the slick highway as they tracked the fleeing vehicle from above. Onlookers from overpasses later recalled the eerie sight of a single black car slicing through traffic while a trail of flashing blue and red lights chased close behind. Inside the sedan, Jason's mind churned with a single thought: escape. He barely registered the flashing signs warning of slippery conditions or the shouted commands over police loudspeakers. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside his head, each drop of rain a reminder of the panic pushing him forward. The world narrowed to the white lines of the highway and the glowing taillights ahead. He shifted lanes without hesitation, forcing officers to adjust their strategy. Spike strips were deployed at several exits, but Jason swerved past each one with alarming accuracy, his instincts sharper than the wet road should have allowed. For nearly an hour, the chase cut through 3 counties, a relentless blur of speed and danger. Drivers who had pulled over to safety watched the procession of flashing lights disappear into the night, unaware of the violence that had sparked the pursuit. Officers maintained distance to avoid triggering a deadly crash, but the fear of what might happen if Jason lost control hung over every mile. The rain continued to fall, relentless and cold, as the black sedan pushed forward into the darkness, carrying its driver deeper into a night that felt endless. While officers trailed Jason across the rain-soaked highway, another team of investigators worked quickly to uncover the motive behind the sudden violence. Within hours of the attack, detectives secured a warrant to search Jason's small apartment on the 2nd floor of an aging brick building a few miles from the clinic. The hallway smelled faintly of damp carpet and cooking oil, an ordinary setting that gave no hint of the turmoil inside. When the door opened to reveal the apartment, the first thing that struck them was the orderliness. Everything was arranged with almost obsessive care. Shoes lined up perfectly by the door, dishes stacked by size in the cupboards. A desk cleared except for a single laptop and a neatly folded set of medical appointment cards. The deeper the search went, the stranger the details became. Inside a bedroom closet, officers found a locked metal box tucked behind a row of winter coats. When pried open, it revealed years of appointment reminders, each carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. Across the top of every card, a single word was written in heavy black marker. Truth. The repetition created a chilling pattern, a silent archive of paranoia that had been building for years. Drawers in the living room contained medical textbooks marked with sticky notes and highlighted passages describing rare illnesses and terminal conditions. Margins were filled with frantic handwriting, questioning diagnoses, accusing doctors of negligence, and linking ordinary symptoms to catastrophic outcomes. On Jason's computer, forensic technicians uncovered dozens of unsent emails addressed to Dr. Mercer. Some messages were polite but pleading, asking for results to be reviewed again. Others were frantic, accusing her of concealing life-threatening findings. The drafts grew darker over time, shifting from worrying to certainty, and finally to anger. One file contained a detailed list of every conversation he had ever had with her, complete with timestamps and imagined inconsistencies. Investigators also found internet searches for terms like how to tell if a doctor is lying and hidden cancers normal tests miss, suggesting a mind consumed by medical fear and distrust. Neighbors provided their own unsettling observations. A tenant across the hall reported hearing Jason pacing late at night, sometimes for hours, the sound of his footsteps stopping only in the early morning. Another recalled seeing him carry stacks of papers to his car late one evening, returning empty-handed with a distant, unfocused stare. None of them had ever heard raised voices or witnessed aggression, only a quiet intensity that now seemed ominous in hindsight. As detectives pieced together the evidence, a picture of Jason's inner world emerged. It was a place where every ache was a warning, every reassurance a cover-up, every doctor a potential conspirator. The stabbing of Dr. Mercer no longer looked like a sudden explosion, but rather the grim end of a long, hidden descent. What had seemed like a random act of violence was instead the culmination of years spent circling the same fears, reinforcing the belief that someone, somewhere, was keeping a deadly secret from him. The chase that had stretched across 3 counties finally reached its breaking point near a sharp curve on a rural stretch of highway. Rain continued to sheet across the asphalt, turning every reflective surface into a blur of light. Officers had been maintaining a cautious distance, knowing that one wrong move at such high speeds could end in disaster. Ahead, the road bent abruptly around a patch of dense woodland, the kind of curve that demanded slowing even in dry conditions. Jason's car entered the bend too fast. Tires shrieked against the wet pavement as the vehicle fishtailed, spinning in a violent arc before slamming sideways into the grassy median. Mud sprayed across the windshield, and the sedan shuddered to a halt in a cloud of smoke and steam. Patrol cars swarmed the scene within seconds, their lights flashing across the darkened highway. Officers approached cautiously, weapons drawn but voices steady, prepared for anything. Through the fogged windows, Jason sat motionless, both hands resting on the steering wheel. The expression on his face was neither anger nor fear, but an eerie emptiness, as if the frantic chase had drained every thought from his mind. When ordered to exit the vehicle, he complied without resistance, stepping out into the cold rain with a slow, deliberate movement. The tension that had built over the past hour seemed to collapse in an instant. Handcuffs clicked into place as the storm carried away the echo of sirens. Paramedics transported Dr. Elaine Mercer to a nearby hospital where surgeons worked quickly to close the wound in her shoulder. Against all odds, the injury, though serious, was not life-threatening. She regained consciousness later that night, disoriented but stable, her calm professionalism giving way to quiet relief as colleagues updated her on the suspect's capture. News of her survival spread rapidly, turning the small-town clinic into a focal point of community concern. Patients who had once walked the halls without a second thought now approached with a new wariness, their trust shaken but not broken. Back at the county sheriff's office, detectives began the slow process of questioning Jason. He spoke little, answering only basic procedural questions and offering no explanation for his actions. Psychological evaluations followed, revealing a complex web of untreated anxiety and delusional thinking. Experts described a mind consumed by health fears, a pattern of obsessive thoughts that distorted reality until suspicion hardened into conviction. Court documents later detailed his long history of medical visits and sleepless nights spent cataloging imagined symptoms. Each appointment with Dr. Mercer had become, in his mind, another opportunity for betrayal. The trial that followed captured widespread attention, not for its legal twists, but for the unsettling ordinariness of the man at its center. Jason had no criminal record, no history of violence, no outward sign of the paranoia that had driven him to attack. He was eventually found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to a secure psychiatric facility where treatment replaced punishment. Dr. Mercer returned to her practice after months of recovery, carrying a scar that told a story of survival and the hidden dangers of silent suffering. The case left investigators and neighbors alike with a haunting reminder of how quickly a mind can turn inward, reshaping fear into a threat no one sees coming until it is too late.